Hello, welcome to another Looney Tunes review video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to follow my journey to review all 1000 classic Looney Tunes shorts and give this video a like as well. So this is a review for A Cartoonist Nightmare, released in 1935. It's the 113th in the series and it's directed by Jack King. You can find this restoration on the Looney Tunes Golden Collection Volume 6 DVD set, and a HD version is out there. You'd find it pretty much on streaming services, assuming it's available. Hopefully one day it'll make its way on physical media at some point. It is under copyright, can't show you the full cartoon here on YouTube. Warner Brothers may choose to put it on their channel, but that's of course up to them, being the copyright holders. But in case you haven't seen this one, it's a very strange one. A cartoonist is staying back for the night at an animation studio and ends up falling asleep at his desk while during a scene with Beans and a villain. The villain ends up pulling the animator into the drawing, and later on Beans has to go rescue him. So it's very bizarre, but we will definitely go through it. So in this review, I'm going to go through the short from start to finish and go through some of the references and some of the trivia around it. And this one's a very, very strange cartoon. But more importantly, this is another bit of transition for the studio. So for a while now, Buddy was the main star of Looney Tunes, and he didn't particularly go too far. I've reviewed every single Buddy short. It's all on the channel, so if you want to see why he didn't work, you got 20-odd something reviews to sit through, and you can figure out why. But even just looking at the character design, it's pretty obvious why he did not take off. So in 1935, Chris Freeling directed a short called I Haven't Got a Hat, where it was like an Our Gang type of short where you had all these different little children type characters and they would just show off in this classroom and you can see all the different personalities within, and it was kind of like a tryout kind of cartoon. Now Porky ended up becoming the star later on, but the studio hedged their bets on Beans being the next star. Why? Look, in hindsight, we can say, hey, yeah, we can see why Beans perhaps isn't the greatest idea in the world. It's not particularly memorable or whatever. But you have to understand that Mickey Mouse was huge at the time and there were other similar knockoffs around. So who were they going to copy? They're going to copy a studio that's successful, right? And Disney were seen as the king at the time. So Beans definitely has that similarity with Mickey Mouse. It was only later on when Beans was teamed up with Porky, which is what Tex Avery started to do, then the audiences responded better to Porky because Porky was something that they hadn't really seen much before in animation, and then Beans would end up being retired and Porky would become their mascot, and Porky would be the big deal at the studio right up until a certain rabbit enters the scene in 1940.
Turn, that's my lunch.
But as you watch this short, I have the feeling that this was originally meant to be a Buddy short, and I've got a few reasons why. First of all, this short is very similar to a few shorts that Jack King directed involving Buddy, where he was in some very surreal situations. In one, he goes to a lost world. In another one, he's shrunk to the size of bugs and ends up going to some sort of a court case involving these bugs. Another surreal one where you have a real life Buddy, but then you also have a photograph of Buddy and that comes alive. So there's very, very strange ideas here. And Beans, you could actually change Beans in this short with Buddy and nothing would be different. Because then you got another short called Hollywood Capers, which is coming up later on in 1935, and I'll get to that review soon. But that one features Beans and all of the other characters that were in I Haven't Got a Hat, like the owl character and so on. And you even have Beans saying, hey, I'm Beans of the Boston Beans. Haha, right?
Beans is the name. One of the Boston Beans.
But there's this big introduction for these Beans characters. So my guess is that they just put Beans in because they knew that Beans was going to be the new star, and that was that. I don't know how far along this was in production before they did this, assuming that this was what actually happened. But you can clearly see in watching this short that this would have most likely started off as a Buddy vehicle just due to the nature of it. And then it was Hollywood Capers that would formally introduce our new star. As I said, didn't particularly last too long. So right away when we open up, we got a brand new opening. So we've got all these potential stars there, including Porky and Beans. So clearly the studio just decided, yep, Buddy was not working, so they created this whole new title card. and eventually that will be replaced once Porky becomes the breakout star. But as the short opens, if you listen to the music, there's one theme here, and it's pretty much the only musical cue on this one. It's the Teddy Bear's Picnic. Why that? I guess it kind of suits it. I like how it's a theme that's run through here, similar to what they would have done in the Merry Melody short, where they would pick a prominent song and just repeat the tune all throughout. So it's an interesting choice, just like this design of animated cartoon studio. You just know that if Texeira redirected this, he would have done something further, like maybe some sort of a weird pun, and he pretty much did actually in one of the Daffy Duck shorts where he had a studio called Wonder Pictures. If it's a good picture, it's a wonder. But anyway, that's fine, it's only a minor nitpick. But I do like the background and the design of this really wacky cartoonist type animated studio. It's interesting choice. There's even like a pipe in the background there. For some reason, a telescope, a cacti. There's a lot of weird details. The more I look at this, stranger it gets. But then again, I'm sure Termite Terrace wasn't too far off. That whole ramshackle place where they made some of the greatest cartoons of all time. But yeah, this is clearly a weird exaggeration. And if you look closely, you can see some of the shadows moving. It's animated kind of weirdly. Maybe it was given to a newer animator just to do, or maybe an effects animator, I don't know. But we get this rather meh gag involving the whistle, seeing what time it is and saying, yep, the shift's over and everyone can leave. Now, looking at these caricatures now, honestly, I have no idea. A lot of them are probably just staffers at the studio. One might be Tubby Millard, that fat person with the pipe in the front, but these characters are not the greatest in terms of us being able to look at it and go, oh yeah, that's so-and-so. If you want to know someone who was great caricaturist, look at the work of Teehee. He did some caricature work over at Disney and Warner Brothers. But one person that we do know of, though, is a caricature of Bob Clampett, because apparently he animated this particular scene. So I guess Clampett's a good animator, but maybe not the best designer in terms of caricaturist. So that's okay. That's just a minor nitpick. But the last person to leave appears to be a take on Ed Wynn in like his fireman persona. And he was a prominent radio star at the time. He had his own show and he was basically the fire chief. That was a running thing for him. And most people might know Ed Wynn both as the Mad Hatter in Disney Alice in Wonderland film and in Mary Poppins. But he was very popular at the time on the radio. So The Watchmen closes things up, and I like the use of light in this one, and that's what this restoration shows off so well. So it closes things up and notices one animator still animating away. And I've been told that this animation is most likely done by Bob McKimson, which would make sense. He was a very fast animator at the time, and given the speed of his drawings right here, it probably is a nod to him. Now, the old man asks, are you going to work all night? And according to Keith Scott's wonderful Cartoon Voices book, the only voice that he's 100% sure on is Billy Bletcher doing the old man and the villain. And if you listen to the old man, I would not have picked Billy Bletcher. So there you are.
You gonna work all night, son?
I gotta finish tonight.
Well, good luck to you.
So we see a bit of an interaction here, and this idea is not really new. In 1935, the Fleischers did similar things with Coco the Clown, where there would be a cartoonist interacting with animated characters, although in that case it was actually a live action cartoonist versus here, where it's all drawn. But this villain, the design is reused from Beauty and the Beast, and in fact, this short features quite a few reused designs. Why? I don't know. Maybe it's just a play on the fact that, yeah, they've created all these villains and they're just stored away, as we'll later on see. But the animator helps out Beans by drawing this cage to keep out the villain or keep Beans away. I don't know. But anyway, and so I guess Beans is all safe in his jail cell, but anyway, okay. And we see that the cartoonist says, oh, I'm tired, and falls asleep. And I love the animation of the cartoonist falling asleep. That might be a Chuck Jones animation there. But anyway, that's just based on what I've seen of him. So now the villain can see that the cartoonist is asleep. And in a really awesome shot, and this is the sort of things that Jack King used to do a lot more, we see this wonderful angle involving this villain reaching out and pulling in the cast into this world. And again, it's very surreal, but obviously, you know, the cartoonist is clearly having a dream about all this. And in one bit that made me laugh, and they must have had issues actually shooting this with the camera at the time because it looks kind of fuzzy, but you've got the villain dragging the cartoonist down a flight of stairs. A piece of wood falls on the villain's head, and the villain gets upset and knocks out the cartoonist and continues on his way. It's a very weird gag. And then a similar thing happens again. So as he's continuing to walk, somehow the cartoonist gets his foot caught in a manual lawnmower and the handle hits the villain on the head. It's such a very strange gag. And hey, I thought it was funny. But I'm not sure why they would have the gag department, the story department, and the music department in this cave-like environment. But anyway, it is what it is. So the villain takes the cartoonist to the cartoon villains room. And we see a few different villains there. So villain 130 is Dirty Dan, you got Spike the Spider, and my favorite villain, being an Aussie of course, is Battling Barney. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a kangaroo with an eye patch, but anyway. But at least the Joey seems nice, because it's the Joey that throws out the cartoonist and looks pretty happy. Nothing really too special happens here. It's just pretty much our main villain punching this cartoonist and torturing him. Okay, I like the timing of it and the sound effects, and I like how it's to the music, but there's nothing really too special here, I guess. But we see the villain, One Punch Otto, and that is a reuse of the evil octopus from Mr. and Mrs. is the Name. And I love the animation of the octopus up against the cartoonist here. And again, this is nothing special, but at least it's fun. And I will say this is definitely one of the better Jack King shorts of recent times. I mean, that's not really saying much. I maintain his first few Buddy ones were probably his best before he just became a very so-so or mediocre director. So after all that, which I think goes on a little bit too long, the villains start singing their own version of the Teddy Bear Picnic song, and I like the lyrics here, and I like how they're saying, hey, you always make us the chumps because we're the villains and so on.
You beat us out of our freight till now and always make us the chumps. You're on the spot, we want you, and how? You get some terrible bumps.
And we see a reuse of yet another villain. This time it's one that Jack King directed from Buddy the Detective, which is that Mad Doctor. So I'm wondering if the reuses here was just a bit of an Easter egg or just something that they did for fun. I don't know, but could be just a cost-cutting measure, but who knows? It's information that's lost at time, but I do like the rendition here of the Teddy Bear's Picnic in any case.
In every picture, we are the GOAT. We got you now. It's our turn to grow.
The tables are turned and now you're in our clutches.
Now, according to Keith Scott's Cartoon Voices book, aside from the unmistakable voice of Billy Bletcher, he's not sure as to who does the other voices singing here. I wonder if they're just the regular staff members just singing along. I don't know, but hopefully one day we'll get information as to who would have sung this particular song.
We are creations from your pen, it's in your hands we lie. You always manage for us to sin, now by your own hands you die.
We'll make you draw a very deep pit, and into it we'll see that you fit.
The tables are turned and now you are in our clutches.
So one of them gives a pencil to the cartoonist and he ends up drawing a hole. But in the next scene, it's like, oh yeah, this is supposed to be a Beans cartoon. And again, I seriously think this was supposed to be a Buddy short. I mean, look at this. You could just replace Buddy right here because they were ignoring Buddy anyway in a lot of his later shorts anyway, so... But anyway, that's just my opinion. So this woman character appears out of nowhere, gives Beans a piece of bread, but the bread actually has a saw in it. Now, who's this woman character? Why is she here? And why is she giving Beans this bread with a hacksaw inside? Who knows? And I'm wondering, since it's the cartoonist's nightmare, is he actually dreaming up this particular bit as well? I don't know. So we're then back to where the villains are, and the cartoonist has drawn his pit, as was requested by these villain characters, and for some reason there's a crocodile all the way in the bottom there. So they push the cartoonist in, and we get a wonderful bit of timing involving the cartoonist being trapped on something and going up and down with the crocodile trying to get him, but the crocodile ends up losing its teeth and giving us that wonderful look on breaking the fourth wall. So at least that's pretty funny, I guess. So Beans then escapes, goes all the way down to where the villains are and sees what's going on. And again, this short is just so strange. He ends up getting a pair of boots and they sound like wind-up toy. Just goes in, kicks one of the villains, and then they all start chasing those pair of boots. kind of weird, but anyway, Beans hides in a barrel. They don't think to look in the barrel, so they run off, and Beans goes to rescue this cartoonist. He drops the pencil down, and this cartoonist, who's incredibly talented, he can seemingly make like a painted image form out of his pencil, but, we'll put that aside. And he starts to climb up, where one of the villains looks back in the room and sees that Beans is trying to help him. But Beans, for some reason, then has a grease gun. See, what would have made more sense, I guess, in some way, is actually have this artist draw a grease gun. Or maybe draw something that's a little bit more elaborate to get rid of these villains. Anyway, I know I'm overthinking it, but in any case, Beans ends up spurting this grease all over the floor, and the villains fall down. One of them is even punched in the hole by this cartoonist. And he pulls out an eraser, and you have to wonder, why didn't he just pull that out earlier and erase these villains? Kind of weird, but anyway. But he does end up erasing the hole, and the villains get trapped forever, I guess. And then the cartoonist ends up shaking hands with Beans, and it turns out it was all a dream, which, what do you expect, right? It's really the night watchman trying to wake up the cartoonist, saying, hey, wake up. And sure enough, the cartoonist realize, hey, I've stayed up too late. But then for some weird reason, even though it's just a dream, he ends up getting rid of the villain with his pen, sort of absorbing the ink like he would in a little pot of ink that he would actually have. Although it's kind of weird because an animator would do mainly the pencil stuff here and a different department would do the inking part, but whatever, they're just simplifying it for the short, okay? I'm definitely overthinking it here. So the cartoonist seems to think that this threat is real, so he gets rid of that villain, gets rid of the cage, and rewards Beans with a beautiful pile of jelly, or jello as you guys say in America. So, yeah. And we also see that's all, folks, done by Beans for the very first time at the end. All right. As I said, this short is incredibly weird, and I'm going to say it one more time. This, I truly feel, was originally written for Buddy in mind. But even if Buddy was in this one would have been at least one of the more interesting shorts, whether it's Buddy or, in this case, Beans. It's truly bizarre, and a lot of the Jack King shorts are really bizarre. It's not really ha-ha funny, but it's got some interesting ideas of which that Chuck Jones would perfect much later in Dark Muck. And again, this is not the first time this sort of story was done. The Fleischers did it in the 1920s with Coco the Clown, and there were various other similar ideas out there. But I was entertained just from the absurdity of it. I like the teddy bear picnic theme that's used all throughout, including the alternate lyrics that you hear here as well. But this short wouldn't have shown off why Beans is a character you definitely want to follow. And I think that was mainly done in the next short that he's in, which is Hollywood Capers, where they properly introduce Beans, where he goes, hey, I'm Beans of the Boston Beans. Putting aside whether that's effective or not, I think that one was intended for that purpose, as opposed to this one where he's just there and that's it. You can even change Beans with Mickey Mouse, for crying out loud. Nothing would really change that much here. But in any case, this one, I don't know, get 6.5 out of 10. It's serviceable. It's got some interesting ideas. I like the design work and some of the things that are in here, but it's ultimately forgettable. And it's interesting to see that this is one of those shorts where before they became directors, you had Bob McKimson, you had Bob Clampett, and you had Chuck Jones all animating in this one. So it just shows, they've got to start somewhere. And these were the sort of shorts they were making beforehand. But that'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for watching, guys. And until next time, take care.